Well, it's Thanksgiving, right? Thursday, 4 days away. So we can celebrate our old, long-time traditions of turkey, football, and family fights, right? That's what makes it really a good time, huh? Yeah, so we've been working through all these different types of families, this modern family in this ancient book, and been looking at different types of structures and situations. And, you know, you could almost be going through this and at times go, well, that's not my situation. I don't know really why then I'm here to hear about this. But I hope what you've been learning is that while we are different and we face some different things, there's something to be learned in every one of these situations to see how God handles this. I hope that you have been hearing that no matter what your situation, God has already dealt with that. He's been at work at that. That's nothing new to him. But today's topic is unique, the estranged family, because it has nothing to do with whatever structure you are. That everyone can experience this. There are those of you in this congregation right now that can go, yep, I can name the person. Now, it may be your situation where you go, well, I don't have anyone particularly estranged in my life right now with my family, but who knows? You know, maybe it was at one time, maybe it will be at some time forward. This is an issue that really can affect us all, and is one of the climaxing stories of this whole epic saga of this family. So let's jump back in. We've been talking about Joseph, the 12 brothers, and we've already talked about this. They just couldn't stand Joseph. He was the favored one. They had their own kind of faults and failures, exaggerated by Jacob, the father, putting favoritism on Joseph. And so the fateful day came, and they said, we are getting rid of Joseph. They are out to kill him. They throw him in a well. They're going to stone him. Eventually, wiser heads, cooler heads prevail. They don't kill Joseph, but as perchance, some slave traders come by and they sell him off to say, hey, our hands are clean. You know, we at least didn't kill our brother. Our hands are clean. Yeah, estrangement. And so Joseph is sent to Egypt, and the brothers go home. Wow, what a story of estrangement. It's not just about the space of going, Joseph now lives in a new place. It is of this tragic event where this hatred boils over and it breaks the bonds of this brotherhood. That's the interesting thing about estrangement, is it really comes in lots of different forms. It's, you know, this is one particular story that we're going to look at, but your experience can be really quite diverse here. I mean, it could go from where there's just kind of some serious tension going on whenever you get in the same room. It's just going to, the elephant's there, we're not going to go there, right? It could get to the place where it's about silence. I'm just not talking to that person. I'm unfriending them on Facebook, you know, however we want to express that. It could go to where there is separation. I just don't even want to be around that person. This person is out of my life. They have left. And it really doesn't matter about the space. It doesn't take somebody going to Egypt. It could be 3 doors down, or it could be across the country, right? There's this separation of going, we don't cross paths. We don't deal with one another anymore. And there could be open hostility between there. There's anger and resentment and bitterness. But it also could be a type of estrangement that is rather apathetic. I just don't care about them anymore. They are a non-entity to me, and you feel nothing, and they are nothing to you. Estrangement. Just as strange as all the ways that we can get there. We can have that great wrong, just like here we have in Joseph's story. You know, I mean, this is a great wrong. They're about to kill. I bet you that there's nobody in this room that has experienced this, that has had a great wrong, that can go, hey, my brother's almost killed me, right? You know, we may have some type of great thing that they did against us, or maybe we did against someone else, and we're on an exile. Maybe it's about a conflict. Certainly coming through this election period, I think that's caused some rifts in families, right? There can be just kind of a situation where we disagree, a situation with caring for a relative that, man, it just suddenly divides the way about this one particular issue. It could have come by a misunderstanding. Somebody thought that they meant this. They looked this certain way. They said this about somebody else, and suddenly there's this gap. And probably the saddest of all, and I've heard this multiple times, is somebody just goes, I don't know what happened. We're estranged. We're apart. We're separated. And we don't even know why. It is, in one sense, very much the human condition here. Really, the story throughout all of Genesis has been about estrangement. People have been moving apart from one another. Adam and Eve moving apart from God, moving apart from one another. The brothers, time and time again, moving apart from one another. This is a constant theme that we bring through here. The powerful thing about estrangement is that it's really a two-cell prison. It's a unique thing like that. Because it doesn't just happen to one person. It undoubtedly affects two people. And so in this situation with Joseph is sent away. He is losing his freedom. He is losing his life. We can hardly appreciate really what this means for Joseph. His life is done. He is not going to have a wife. He's not going to have a job. He's not going to have a future. He is going to be used up as a resource and then cast aside at somebody's pleasure. And that's it. There is nothing good in front of him, knowing that his brothers have done this. Not just a mistake, not just a bad financial decision. Somebody, the people that I love, the people that I'm bonded to, have done this to me. He is in a prison of estrangement. But how much more so for the brothers? They have to go home, They have to lie to their father. He was torn by a wild animal. They're going to live with that lie. They will know what they've done. As deep as estrangement affects us, there is another peculiar thing about it, and that is that life just goes on. You know that? It's an odd thing. You have this thing in your life, it kind of preys on the back of your mind. It's not there because somebody's not there, but it's always there. But life just kind of goes on, and that's what happens in this story, is that you kind of have the Joseph story that Mary talked about last week there, about his kind of solo journey. It gives a few stories about the brothers, and God's kind of working on them, but really, life just kind of keeps on happening. But God is at work, and he brings Joseph up through the ranks. I'm not going to repeat the whole story until he gets to before the Pharaoh, and through divination, through understanding, God working through him to interpret dreams, he reveals God's plan. The Pharaoh says, voila, and what do you know? Joseph wins in a landslide. He becomes second in charge. It's amazing. From rags to riches. It's wonderful. His life does a complete 180. It's amazing. Life has just kind of gone on. I don't know if he's really even thought a lot about his family anymore, as much as he has just been overcome with trying to survive. What's interesting, we usually kind of focus on this. There's one little section here right after he gets this job. He's second in command. That's why we played Veeps. Second in command, all right? Not because of the election, because of Joseph. Stick with me here, folks. All right. So he has this job because, right, God's going to give him 7 years of blessing, and he's going to oversee that. Then there's going to be 7 years of famine. So he's getting ready, and he is just saving stuff up. He's doing great. He gets a wife, and then he has 2 kids. I mean, this is a total reversal. It's not just about having a good job. Man, life suddenly comes into a very good place. But it's this one verse, and this is an actual historical archaeological picture. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh. and said, "It is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all of my father's household." You know, with estrangement, there is this place where it's there, but it's not there. And life goes on, and you can grab hold of this spot where you just go, you know what, I'm going to just kind of forget about it. It's easier to forget because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to undo this thing. And so I'm just going to kind of forget. And it sounds very much like Joseph reached that spot. I mean, life is good for him. I almost wonder why there isn't some interesting part of this. I mean, he's second in command. He can do whatever he wants. He has resources now out the wazoo. Why doesn't he go, I'm going to go home with my entourage and show them who I am? No, Joseph just goes, it's better that I just forget. Estrangement does that. It can get you to a place where you're stuck, where there's no forward motion on this. It's there, but it's not there. And I just really want to kind of go, I'd just rather forget about it and enjoy whatever good thing I have. Right? That's a real place. This isn't a story where Joseph goes to church, he hears a sermon from his pastor going, hey, you know, you need to really kind of work things out, and he goes, okay, I'm going to call up Dad. Hey, Dad, just want to let you know what the brothers did to me. Let's work it out. No, he's at a place where he's going, this is good. My life is now has a new direction, and I have forgotten not just my trouble, I've forgotten my household. I don't even want to be part of them anymore. I'm done. It is not by Joseph's initiation, it's by perchance that this famine comes along. And it affects the whole Middle East and a large area. So everybody from all over the world is coming to Egypt because Egypt is the one place that God expressed his plan. They have made provisions, and so now they're all coming. And so what do you know? The 10 brothers are sent by Jacob saying, man, we need food. Egypt has food. Here's some money. Go get some. You're not taking Benjamin. I'm not going to even risk anything happening to Benjamin. Oh, we still got a little bit of favoritism going on there, right? The 10 brothers come down, and it's remarkable to me that neither one is really expecting this to happen. I mean, they think Joseph's dead, so we kind of get that. But Joseph almost is caught by surprise of going, he sees his 10 brothers, he recognizes them, and he's like, oh my goodness. You know, have you been in those situations where you're estranged from somebody, and it just, by perchance, you come across each other's path, and suddenly all of these dynamics that we've said, well, we're going to just forget them, we're just going to kind of put them down, suddenly bubble right up. Well, that's what happens to Joseph. It's an amazing thing. They come, they bow down before him, and I want you to do the reading this week for certain here, because the interaction is so intense, so detailed. Usually they do a lot of summary, but man, they put everything in here. And Joseph, it says, he spoke roughly to them, and he said, who are you and where do you come from? Hey, we're just some sons of a father. We're coming for some food. He goes, no, you're not. You're here for spies. You've come to see the weakness of Egypt. I know what you're about. No, we're not that. How many are you? We're 12. The youngest is home. One is no more. He goes, I don't believe you. You are spies. 3 times he just rails on them. You're not telling the truth. I know who you are. You're saying this, but I know what you are. And he takes them and he throws them into prison. He says, I will keep all 9 of you and send one of you back, that you must bring back that younger brother to confirm who you are and what you say. And he leaves them in jail for 3 days. So we're going to take some from this, some principles of reconciliation. First, you want to speak harshly, take an accusing tone. No, those are not the things to do, right? You know, obviously this is a sensitive subject for Joseph. It's been 20 years 20 years. We're not talking just a little bit of time, 20 years. And suddenly all of this bubbles to the surface by just simply seeing them. Boy, this is real stuff, folks. These aren't made up stories. This is a real family. It looks like a real family, doesn't it? What I find interesting is one other little line in this. Right at the beginning of this dialogue, it says, and then Joseph remembered his dreams. Remember back when he was a 17-year-old and God gave him these dreams of going, the moon and the stars are going to bow down to me, and your wheat sheaves are going to bow down to me. And he got, mocked by his brothers and even his father. And here it comes up, it pops up, it says he remembers his dreams, and that's when he burst into the accusations. Well, it is the mind of Joseph here. You know what? God said it, and it's come true, and now I have the power to do something. At one time, I didn't have the power, but now I do, and they're going to get it. I am going to exact revenge, and it is God ordained. He gave the dreams, didn't he? When we are in a strange relationship, particularly when we are on the wounded end of this, it is so easy to get to that place, isn't it? Just go, I have a right here, and I'm going to drive it home any chance I get. It's very human. He's deeply wounded here. He has a lot of mixed emotions. But eventually, Joseph calms down. 3 days in prison, he calms down. He comes back to his senses. He probably, had his quiet time with God. Okay, Joseph, it's all right. This isn't the plan. That's not what the dreams were about. And so he comes back to them, and he offers them 3 tests over a period of time. He says, okay, here's what we're going to do. 1, I'm only going to keep 1 of you. So you see the change of mind. He was going to keep 9 and send 1. He went, okay, I'm only going to keep 1 of you. I'll send 9 of you back, and you have to bring Benjamin. Uh-oh, he puts him in a conundrum, doesn't he? You've got to leave 1 behind. But then he gives them back all of their money. Now, he might go, well, is that really a test? Maybe. Maybe he's setting them up to go, let's see what the 9 do. If it comes down to their neck or their brother's neck, are they going to go, forget him? Only 1 left behind. I got all my gold back. We don't ever need to come back again. Maybe. Maybe it is an act of kindness. Maybe there's some graciousness going on there with the return payment. We don't know. That's kind of in the story. The brothers go home. The 9 brothers go home. They explain to Jacob, we've got to bring Benjamin back. Jacob says, oh, my poor son in prison. Here, quickly, take Benjamin down. He says, forget it. You will never take Benjamin from my side. Do you get that? A father is saying, I don't care what happens to one of my sons. You're not going to touch Benjamin because he's the last one I have with Rachel. Ooh. That hasn't changed at all. Well, the food runs out, and the famine's still going. It's 7 years long. The brothers are coming to him going, come on, Dad. There's only one way out. And eventually, Jacob makes peace with it. He says, fine, take Benjamin. And if I lose him, I lose him. My life will come to an absolute terrible end. But I have no other route. They bring Benjamin down. So 10 of them return. They're quickly, when they're seen, they're brought right into Joseph's house. They're like, oh no, what's going on? Maybe they're mad because we got our money back. Joseph comes out and says, no, that's all right. God must be being gracious to you. They bring Simeon, the one that was left behind. He brings them out and he throws them a feast. And they're like, whoa, what's going on here? He sets them up and don't have time to go into all the details. But he gives Benjamin 5 times the food that he gives everybody else. You know what we need to learn from that? If you're going to have a brother, have Joseph be it. That's what I get out of it. No, he favors Benjamin. Is that going to rile up some of these feelings in the brothers? He does this tricky thing. He says, okay, load them up with food, let them go back, but hide one of my silver goblets, my gold goblets, whatever it was, a divination cup, in Benjamin's bag. They're not even out of the city. They get the SWAT team around them, SRU, please stop your donkeys, dismount. And, they're being mouthy. They're like, we didn't take anything. Go ahead, check everything. If you find anything, you can kill the person that has it and make the rest of us slaves. I mean, they are so bold and so daring. Nothing can go wrong in this situation. Starting with the oldest, they go right down, feeling exonerated until they get to Benjamin and the cup falls out. Oh, my goodness. I mean, this is the worst of all possible things. They are brought back into the palace with Joseph. They are surrounded by guards. This is bad news. This is like getting caught in the middle of Iran right now. There's no good way out of this thing. Joseph comes in. They start pleading, going, we don't know what happened here. We didn't steal anything. We have no explanation. We're trying to cause trouble. Joseph says, it's okay. It's okay. I'm not vindictive. The 10 of you can go home, and I will only keep the offender. Man, talk about testing here, all right? He gives them the perfect opportunity to once more get rid of the favored brother. All they got to do is say yes and go home. He goes into a long speech, Judah. We cannot do that. We will not abandon our brother again. Maybe they go by force. Maybe they take a defensive posture. But Joseph finally sees that his brothers have changed. And that's what those tests have been about. Have they changed? It's an interesting part of this story, and what should we gather from that? Should we gather from this part of, if you've been wronged, that you ought to test? That you ought to see if someone has been sorry enough before you can say, I'll take any steps of grace towards them? I don't know. Certainly, reconciliation is a complex thing. There's a danger to going, I'm going to test people and see if they meet my standard now. Because then there's always that place where we can kind of hold back. Forgiveness is not just about forgetting. If it was, Joseph's story would have been done when he got exalted to the highest position. And we would read it now out of the Bible of going, you just stay true to God and God will turn your story around and it doesn't matter how bad your family is. We'd love that. That's a great American story. Rags to riches. Forget those that did me wrong and stuck me. But forgiveness is not just about forgetting. God didn't leave Joseph in that place. He's the one that has kind of orchestrated this coming together. And forgiveness is not just about getting over it. At this point, Joseph could have went, okay, you know what? I got a little bit of revenge. I can see that maybe they've changed. I'm going to just kind of keep on my life. My life is on a good track. I don't need any more hassles or entanglement or figuring out whether they're good or they've changed or whatever. Let me just kind of stay on my path. I'm over it. Because this is the world's gift to you, folks. This is the world's gift. They have taken one of God's most beautiful gifts of forgiveness and they have twisted it and turned it over and said forgiveness is fundamentally about you feeling okay about something. And it's not. It's a lie. You take something beautiful and gracious and you make it into a selfish act. Joseph could have went, hey, I'm in a good place. See you guys, and never revealed himself at all. But reconciliation ultimately requires that type of risk. Maybe there is a proper place for testing. Sometimes you'll never get to a place where you're going to go, man, everything's for sure. I know what they're going to be and what they're going to do. They're always going to choose right. People are risky. He has tested them. He has seen that they have changed. Maybe part of that plan has been motivated by his own issues. Maybe it's been motivated some by God processing the brothers through. But that moment, Joseph knows something has changed in him. He sends all the Egyptians out of the room. No guards, no one else. They're careful to say he was alone with his brothers when he did this. Joseph simply says, I am Joseph. Could you understand the power of that room? 20 years of living with it. Both Joseph, but also the 10 brothers, living with it. And here he says, I am Joseph. I am the brother you sold into slavery. He doesn't whitewash this. That's not reconciliation where we go, you know what, it's okay, we won't talk about it, but it still burns in our heart. True reconciliation has to be guided by truth. You did do this to me. We all know it. But it's the next step. He says, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves. How about that? What a gracious gift. To be able to say, I forgive you. And he ends with saying, don't worry, God sent me ahead of you. If you're careful, you'll notice the contradiction here, the logical contradiction we have here. You are the ones that sold me into slavery, but God sent me ahead of you. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit next week, the intricacies of narrative theology. What Joseph is doing here is going, I know the truth of how you treated me, but there is one with a bigger plan in my life. I trust God. I know people are going to wrong me, and I'm going to wrong other folks. You know what? It's God that guides my steps. And what's powerful about this is he doesn't do this just, well, God took care of me. You notice what he says. God sent me ahead of you. He ties what happens to him of going, God's using me for this. It doesn't mean that God made them sell him into slavery. That's the wrong way to erase that. It's just understanding, yep, there's this line of what people do, but then God is acting above that. And I'm tapping into that stream. If I stay down here and just look at what people have done to me, he would have just tried to stay in that place of forgetting. Reconciliation is a complex thing. And it's got a lot of layers to it. Us preachers are too often guilty of just going, hey, just forgive it and get moving along. There is a place for, you know what, get over stuff and be quick to forgive. But when we're talking about some deep fundamental things of wronging one another, the Bible doesn't shortchange that. We look at that one situation, that one reveal, and we go, hey, yay, it's all better now, wonderful. And it is. It's a dramatic turning point, and God's grace is just kind of pouring out in that moment. all of this brokenness that we have been talking about for 8-9 weeks, suddenly God has brought together the worst of the things. And he has reconciled that. But let's not shortchange this and say, well, just because you have one good moment, it fixes everything. The deeper the wounds, the more the layers. Reconciliation says, I'm going to stay the path. I'm not just looking for one victory. I'm staying the course of going, let's make this thing right. Jacob dies, and the brothers get afraid. Yeah, hang on. They're like, he's treated us pretty good here, only because of Dad. And now our protector's out of the way. He's going to come after us. He really is still pretty ticked off about what happened. So they devise a plan. They come to him and they throw themselves down and they say, Dad said one last thing. Please forgive your brothers. We're all your slaves. Just don't harm us. But Joseph said to them, do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. This is years after that reveal event. What is not in my passage here, when he gets word of this message from the brothers, it says Joseph wept. He broke down. This is not a done deal for him. It's not a done deal yet for the 10 brothers. They need to hear again. I'm not here to judge you. Yep, you did me wrong. But my trust is in God. My path is going to treat you kindly and to provide for you. It's a powerful story throughout this whole time. We're going to talk about this some next week, of this bringing together, of this restoring. I want you to know that this isn't the 30-minute quick fix thing. This is over 25 years, folks. That's a long time to be estranged. That's a long time to be still bringing up bitter stuff from the past. It might be in your situation that you don't even see a light at the end of the tunnel. I want to challenge you today with stay the course, God's course. Reject that. I'm going to just forget about this. It takes right timing. The story isn't here's 1, 2, 3 steps and it's going to fix every relationship, right? It takes 2 to bring this together, as much as someone that is ready to see God's timing when it's brought before them. Joseph could have bailed out on this process multiple times, right? He could have just quietly went, I'm forgetting this. I'm going to let this pass by. But he was brave enough to step into the opportunities God created. Work through his pain. Work through their process. And see on the other side that God brought this back together. See, that's the business God's in. Well, yeah, that too. God is in the business of taking broken things and putting them back together. So I give you some challenges on your back of your connection card. If you are in this place, what is God saying is your part of creating that opportunity, of taking that opportunity, and saying, God, will you make this broken thing whole again? Let's pray. Father, we want to bring before you maybe some of the most difficult pieces of our life, where the family bonds have been broke, where they are strained. Lord, you offer hope. You know exactly what we are. You know how wily we can be, how difficult we can be, how fearful we can be. But you are about mending and bringing broken hearts back together. So, Lord, for whoever is in that place right now, may you fill them with hope. May you fill them with your grace to extend the hand. Amen.